You are golden, you are good enough, like your fire from within. You're inspired, you inspire us, it's gonna be all good again.
Hello and welcome to the Roar Indie Author Interview Series. My name is Brianna. I'm your host, and today's author we have with us today is Lauren Ranalli. She is a writer in Michigan, and she's going to share all about her book. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself. What inspired you to be an author?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course.
Gosh, what inspired me? Well, I've always been a reader, and I've always loved reading with my kids. And even when my first child was really young, so he has a December birthday, and we're an interfaith family, so we celebrate both Hanukkah and Christmas. So when he was born in December, he got all of these lovely Christmas books as like gifts, and I was like, oh, I'll just go out and find a Hanukkah book for him, to balance our bookshelf. And I could not find what I wanted. I felt like it was, there's these two ends of the spectrum, right? Like on one end, it was the history of the Maccabees and like very much about the religious piece of it. And then it was like Elmo celebrates Hanukkah or Curious George celebrates Hanukkah. And there was no like stories just about a family experience. So when he was very little, I wrote a story for him called The Great Latke Cook Off. And I just sent it to myself as an email. You know, I was a busy new mom with a full-time job. And I was like, I'll just read this to him later in life. And then later in life, I decided I really wanted to do something with it. So that took me down the path of exploring the incredible world of self-publishing. And now I'm about to put out my fourth children's book. And it's been so exciting.
That's awesome. So are all your books centered around like Jewish faith and culture? Or
they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not. They all have like very different themes. You know, my first one, like I said, is The Great Latke Cook Off, and it's a story of a family celebrating the 8 nights of Hanukkah. Actually, the second book that I wrote is the fourth one to come out, which is coming out this spring, and it's called Snow Day at the Zoo, and it's about what happens when zookeepers' children get kind of snowed in with their animal friends. The second book I published is called Places We Have Never Been, and it's an exploration. It's a book of questions that helps kids think about places they want to explore in their mind. And it's just helping people kind of understand how you can learn about other cultures and other places. And then my third book was called Let's Meet on the Moon. And it's kind of about like letter writing and sort of staying connected to people when you can't be together. And it was a bit serendipitous. I wrote it before COVID, but it came out right at the beginning of COVID when we couldn't, the very beginning when like we couldn't even see our neighbors, and so it was about, how do you stay in touch with people near and far when you want to remain close.
That's awesome. How ironic or how coincidental?
Yeah, it felt like, right. It did. It felt like it was this nicely timed moment of saying like, here's a way that we could talk to kids and young people. And it comes with postcards, the book. So like you could leave postcards in your neighbor's mailbox, or you could send it to your grandparents or your friends. It was a nice moment, I think, to like really think about staying connected.
That's awesome. So I love that you celebrate both holidays in your house, because my son, he'll be 5, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, but he's always curious about people who don't celebrate Christmas. And I'm like, well, not everybody has a Christmas tree, and Santa doesn't visit everybody, and that's okay. And so luckily for us, he goes to a Montessori who exposed to a bunch of different cultures and ways of thinking and religious practices, etc. And so, he's coloring in his menorah so I think it's really cool to put that out there for kids, because we are, especially little kids, they only know what they live. Right. That's you could say that about anybody. Yeah. But for just to answer some questions about, hey, it's just different, it's just their tradition. This is their customs. Like, this is what they believe. And that's really awesome. Right. So
the book for me it really doesn't even get into really the religious aspect of it. It's about a cooking contest. It's about a family cooking contest, and so it's just about these sort of normal experiences that families have, and about traditions.
Yes, I love it. Anything about traditions is really cool. I was raised Catholic, so there's lots of tradition.
There's lots of tradition. Same with my husband. There's lots of tradition, and there's lots of tradition that's already reflected in books, right? And so, like, making sure that like we can find those other ways for kids to see themselves, or either see themselves or see others.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, which book or books is part of the Roar series?
Yeah, so it's going to be the places. I'm sorry, no, it's going to be the Let's Meet on the Moon book, which is the one about staying connected. So it hasn't been incorporated yet, but that is the plan.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so great. What does it mean for you to be a part of this reading initiative?
I mean, anything to me that can get kids more access to books is so important. I'm on the board of the Children's Literacy Network, and that is really the mission of that organization is to get children, better access to books and growing lifelong readers. So to me, this idea of having these book vending machines, I mean, it just it checks all the boxes for me.
It makes it fun and exciting.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really great that you're on the board too.
Yeah, it's been a really wonderful experience. This is my second year on the board.
Awesome. Do you have any advice or insight for aspiring writers?
I do. I mean, actually, my full-time work is in marketing and communications for a national public health organization. And so in addition to being an author, I also, I do trainings and coaching for aspiring and established authors all over the world. I think I've worked with people in, I think, over 35 countries now, which is so much fun. And so I do a lot of, training and assistance with folks who are thinking about, like, I've got this story idea and I'm not really sure what to do with it, or I don't know what it means to self-publish, or thinking about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, or for folks who've gotten their book out there and maybe they had a great initial launch, but now, as many of us do, we see a lull after that first launch, and how do you maintain that book sales? Like, how do you improve marketing? So I, on my website, I have a free guide for folks who are thinking about self-publishing. It's like my top 5 resources that I would recommend. So I can make sure that you and your listeners have that link. And, I have my own children's book marketing newsletter and whatnot. So I think if you're thinking about putting a book out there, I would say, sort of gather some resources, because one of the reasons I really started doing training and coaching is that I recognized is that basically we all have the same questions, right? Yeah. And so and self-publishing takes a lot of time and energy. And I don't want people spending their time and energy on the things that have already been figured out, right? I can just give you a guide or a blog post or whatever, or we could set up a coaching call, because your time and energy should be spent elsewhere. It should be spent finding your own audience and making sure your illustrations are amazing and all of that stuff. But I think that if you've got an idea, I say explore it. There's always room for more books in the world.
Absolutely. There's always, and just because there might be a similar story out there, I mean, your story is still different,
Exactly. we each have our own perspective. And I think that there is, think about it as moms, how many books do we buy or borrow from the library or gift to others? I mean, constantly. It's I don't think there's very few people who can truly say and stick to saying no, we have enough books. It's just not a thing.
I just had to rearrange my bookshelves.
Yes.
All the things that I have for my kid.
Right, exactly. And you're I'm going to get rid of some to make room for more. That's what, because kids are always aging out of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's a constant cycle and rotation. So I think there's always room for more stories.
There is always room for more stories. Oh, that's so great. Is there anything else you want to share with us about your writing journey or being an indie author?
I think I would just say that, one of the biggest myths I think I realized when I was first thinking about this is the myth that self-publishing is for people who couldn't get a publisher. And that is so far from the truth. It's so far from the truth. Traditional publishing has some great benefits and it has some major drawbacks. And I think especially as we're thinking about getting stories out there that share more diverse perspectives, that you don't want to wait 4 years to have it put on the shelf. It is an incredibly vibrant and viable and profitable option to publish your own book. And so I would highly recommend it.
Well, I'm going to check out your website for sure. Can you share that with us?
Yes, it's laurenranalli.com. And I'll make sure that you have the link to it. And I'm also probably most active on Instagram at lauren.ranalli_author if folks want to hang out with me over there.
That's incredible, Lauren. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories. And we hope that everybody who's tuning in is also enjoying reading and writing. Keep at it.